Oh, good morning everyone in Facebook land. Jackie Broman here from TBA Law. Sorry, I kicked my stand then. So every Monday I try and pop in here and do a Facebook Live about a small snippet of information so that you can look ahead to see what next Monday's topic is and you can prepare any questions that you have. Or you can go back through all the videos that are saved then on our Facebook page to have a look through any of the topics that might be relevant for you or someone in your family. So last week I did preparing your real estate for sale. Today I'm doing preparing to buy real estate. So most of my topics thus far have been on estate planning and deceased estates, which is my area of specialty, but TBA Law also does a lot of property work. So I'm going to do a short series on a fair few things about property next, and then we'll move on to perhaps superannuation or some other topic like that. So I think next week I'm talking about making sure you've got enough funds for your purchase. Occasionally we have first home buyers who don't understand all the taxes and fees involved in buying, and they go to a broker or a bank and only just borrow enough for the purchase price and not for stamp duty and any other additional fees, and they get a little bit of a shock. So I'm going to go through that next week. So today is mainly about when you're preparing to buy real estate, not from a financial perspective, but from doing your checks about the property and making sure that it's what you want and you are actually buying what you think you're buying. So I do have a 9 steps to buying a property sheet, which is available on our website. So you can go there and download that if you're interested in following through the 9 steps that is involved in conveyancing. Now, the very first step that we're talking about is actually reviewing the vendor statement and the terms of the contract before you go ahead and buy. So if someone is looking to buy, we are happy to look over the Section 32 vendor statement for them. We're happy to, in fact, look over a couple of them for free if we know that they're going to use us when they ultimately buy, because it's best that we check a couple of properties before they find their perfect one in most cases. So what are you looking at when you're looking at a vendor statement? So you've got to check the plan of the property, and we really highly recommend to people that they actually walk out the boundary. You can get a survey done if you like, but it's a fairly big cost to do, particularly if it's just a residential block. If it was a large rural property and there was potentially some really old boundary issues, fencing issues, or even general law land, yes, we would often recommend a survey get done in that case. But usually having a look at the plan that is provided for you in the vendor statement, and we can also provide you with one separately if you need to from our own searches. You walk out the boundary roughly to check in feet or meters, depending on what the plan talks about. And you also check it from the nearest corner to make sure that it is actually the block that you're wanting to buy. So checking that is the first step. If you have some concerns that it's not exactly right, then you've got to let us know. Okay, so there's nothing that we can do if we don't know. We're not going to check physically on the ground for you. And that's about the best that you can do, really. To protect yourself further, you can buy title insurance. So we offer that as well, which I'll talk about on another video. It's a whole topic within itself. So check the boundary. If it's out by a couple of feet, you might not be able to tell. But if you have title insurance, the title insurance will help cover all the costs to fix the boundaries up. And we have had that happen to people before who've been covered, thankfully. Because if you're not covered, it's tens of thousands of dollars potentially. Also check the property for building works. So often a vendor's only required to disclose building permits. If they've done work that doesn't have a permit, they don't have to disclose it. So you need to check the property to see whether anything looks newish, right? So they've got an obligation to give you warranty insurance on works that are done in the last 10 years. Now this could include a carport, a veranda, an extra room, a shed, all these sorts of things. Internal works is generally not something that needs a building permit for. If you know that it's an older property that has had upgrades, you will want to get at least a building inspection done. But you may also ask, well, I want the plumbing and electrical certificates from the upgrades that have happened. And if it was done by a builder, they also often have builder's warranty insurance for covering, particularly significant extensions. So building works are important to check. Again, we don't physically check the property for you. So it really is up to you to physically check the property and let us know if there's something that we should be concerned about. And then if you raise something with us, we can ask the questions. If they haven't disclosed something that they're supposed to disclose, then potentially you can get out of a contract if you have already signed something. Another big one to check is before you sign a contract, you need to make sure that everything that you want to stay on the property is written in the contract. This is, in fact, is something that we have the most disputes about, is that people mistakenly think that things are staying on the property and they're not in fact staying. Quite often in dispute are dishwashers, sometimes pumps, sometimes things associated with pools, sometimes certain garden ornaments, sometimes things that are maybe bolted down to the ground but not necessarily considered a fixture. So someone can easily just undo the bolts and take it. So again, if there's something that is you want to stay with the property, you tell us, we make sure it gets in the contract before you sign it, because raising it with us a week before settlement is not going to help us, because if it doesn't say in the contract it's staying, then it's generally not staying, and there's not much you can do about that. Likewise, condition of the property. If there is a lot of rubbish there, you will want to tell us, and don't just assume that they're going to clean the property up. They may just leave the rubbish there. They don't have to provide a clean property for you. So if you want rubbish all removed, it should go into the contract. You should tell us and we'll get it written in. Likewise, if there's a little bit of damage to the property that you want fixed before settlement, you can have the contract conditional on, some holes being fixed or something being completed. But again, if you don't tell us, we don't know, and if it's not written in the contract, it's not guaranteed to happen. Another thing to check is planning. So it's usually not an issue for residential zoned areas. It's more relevant if you're looking at a rural living property, if it is actually farming zone, or if it's zoned, anything other than your normal residential, and you want to do something with the property, you need to check that you can actually do that within that scope. So we can provide you with some idea around what council could approve in that planning zone, but then you need to make the inquiries with council to see whether they would. If you really wanted to and it was really important for you, you could make the contract conditional on getting a planning permit for the thing that you wanted to do. That might take a fair while and a vendor might not be so happy to do it, but it takes a little bit of risk off you, and if it doesn't hurt to ask the question if it's that important to you. So those things to check: boundary, building works, things that you want to stay on the property, planning requirements. Really important to check those things before buying a property. And like I've been talking about, before you sign a contract, if you can do these checks and then talk to us about what special conditions need to go in a contract before you sign, it's really important. If you sign a contract without talking to us first, there's very little that we can do to negotiate to get new terms into the contract later. Okay, so do your checks, talk to us before signing, make sure the contract actually says what's to happen. I'm quite often surprised about people who don't think that a contract is binding, or that you can just add things later. There's no compulsion, you have no leverage to try and add extra conditions to a contract after it's already signed. So when looking to buy a property, those are the main things to check. Like I said, next week I'm talking about the financial side of preparing to buy a property, and things to make sure that you account for. But due diligence on your property, building works, planning, boundary, and things that you want to stay on the property are the primary things to talk to us about. So I hope that that's helpful this morning. I hope that there might be someone that you could share this video with and to help them out as well. Like I said before, these videos all get saved onto our Facebook page, so you can go back and look at them when the time's relevant. And I pop in here every week to do a short snippet of legal information. So watch out for the coming weeks. Like I said previously, most of my topics thus far have been on my area of specialty, which is wills and estate planning and deceased estates. But I'm doing a short series for a month or so on real estate as well, because we do a fair bit of that work at TBA Law too. So if you have any specific questions, please direct message us through this Facebook page, or if you jump onto our website, our direct emails are there if you have any specific questions, or if you want me to address a question in one of these Facebook Live sessions, again, a direct message on Facebook is probably the way to go. So I hope that's